Hey y'all, and welcome to season 3 of the Be a Boss Coaching Podcast. My name is Beatriz. I'm a business and entrepreneur coach, and I'm the founder of Be a Boss Coaching. In this podcast season, I am thrilled to have a brand new lineup of guests from diverse fields, each bringing their own unique products and services to the table. Not only are we featuring inspiring business entrepreneurs and their stories, but we'll also dive into the skills and innovations that are integral in building a thriving business. Get ready for topics that are essential for your entrepreneurial journey. In this season, we'll cover everything from healing to AI to creativity to building a private practice. Stay tuned and don't forget to visit BeaBossCoaching.com where you can read our other blogs, listen to our other podcast episodes, and join our newsletter where you'll find out about new services and offers and exclusive discounts and so much more. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope you enjoy the show. Hi everybody, and welcome to season 3, episode 1 of the Be a Boss Coaching Podcast. And I am so excited to kick off this season with a solo episode. And I wanted to do a solo episode because I was contemplating if I wanted to do solo episodes this season. And I was like, yeah, I love doing solo episodes because I get to talk to myself. And I feel like I'm talking to you as well, having on one-on-one. You might be listening on Spotify, but you might be watching this on YouTube. And if you are, I am so excited that you are here. But let's kick things off, right? Like we should kick things off. So, okay. So I was brainstorming a few things. I wanted to figure out what kind of episode do I want to kick season 3 off. And as I was trying to think about that, I was like, why don't I just make an episode on how to be yourself in creating content? How do you step into a version of yourself where you feel very authentic and not just feel like yourself, but have the courage to then put out what you just created, being fully, totally yourself and putting it out, putting your message out in whatever format you choose. And so I want to talk about how to be yourself in creating content because, and this is why this is so important, it's because when we are in this mindset of creating whatever we're creating for, whether it's a podcast or a blog or you're creating new programs for your business, you unintentionally might be putting yourself in a mindset where you really want to create something great and beautiful and of quality, but then the idea of being yourself takes a back seat. And really, when you are yourself is when the best content comes to mind or when the best content comes out because it is created from a place that you can truly relate with or relate to people with, right? And so if you've ever had a lot of difficulty creating content, whatever it is, it might be because you're thinking a lot about the quality of it, right? Or how clear your message is or how creative it is that you forget to be yourself. So I want to share some ideas for how to bring yourself out in your content, how to be yourself in your content, and then create from a place that's you, that's truly about you. Okay? And hopefully this helps you out in moving forward as you start creating for your business, to start talking about you, and hopefully you start to sell and create community and promote your services where you're really selling you and not so much like the secondary thing, which is whatever you're selling. Because trust me, especially if you're a solopreneur and you're doing this on your own and you're selling coaching or you're selling consulting or you're selling whatever you're selling, that tends to be secondary because at the end of the day, you're selling you and how you work with people. So let's get into it. All right. The first thing I want you to think about is you might have a perception about what quality content means to you, right? There's so much content out there, YouTube videos, podcasts, blogs. There's so much, and there's good content, but there's also bad content as well. But I want you to think about, what does quality content mean to you? Because we all start, when we start to create content, we all start from a place of where what our minds, what our heads perceive as quality content. And I want you to think about what that means to you. What is content that you perceive as good quality content? What are the elements of it? Is it because they use good video, or maybe they have good audio? Maybe they have good editing. Maybe it's quick and to the point. Whatever quality means to you, I want you to define that. And then I want you to dismantle it. I really want you to just dismantle that, because wherever you are in your journey of creating content, whether you've been creating content for years or you're just starting, you have a perception about what good quality is, and when you make something, even if you have a really wonderful message to share, you might not share it simply because you don't think that it's short enough, or that's quick to the point, or it's not even clear what it is that you're saying. So I want you to assess where you are, where you fall in terms of what you perceive that quality to be. And how close are you to that level of quality? Are you able to create content where, even without a camera or the best audio or the best editing, can you still deliver your message in a way that is authentic to you? And that's what I want you to think about, because before we start to unlearn what good quality is, then you have to be aware of what you currently think that is. Okay? So you have to be aware of what you currently believe quality content is, unlearn it, and that way you know what you're unlearning. That way you know what beliefs you have to work with in order to start practicing being authentic in your content. All right. Number 2 is, I want you to create content from a place of authenticity and not urgency. I'm learning that when I create content, there's a belief in the back of my head that I have to create consistency. I have to show up everywhere. I have to show up every day. I have to show up at least 2 times a day. And that message is out there, right? Like, in order to gain traction and followership or awareness of your brand or your business, you have to show up, especially if you're an online business, you have to show up consistently. And what I've learned about my journey as a creator and as an entrepreneur is that my process is, I need to brainstorm things out. I need to think out loud, and I need to talk to myself about the thoughts and ideas that I have and tease out the message or the value that I want to provide. And sometimes I get mad at myself about that, because I want to be consistent and show up more than what I'm currently showing up. But because my process for an idea or creating a piece of content is a little bit, it takes a little longer, I get mad at myself. And then I end up not creating at all. Or if I do, it's something that I perhaps don't fully believe. And I don't like putting things out in the world that I don't fully believe in. I don't like that feeling. It's an icky feeling. So I have to be okay with my process of brainstorming, teasing out my thoughts and ideas, and then creating from a place where it feels like I've teased that out. And even if it takes longer, I'm doing the work of being okay with that. I'm doing that work because I'd rather have 2-3 pieces of content out there that I'm super proud of than 10 pieces of content that I'm not fully, like, I don't even remember where that thought or idea came from. So that's the question that I would ask you is, are you creating from a place of urgency or a place of authenticity? And operating or creating from a place of authenticity is being okay with your process, is being patient with yourself, is having grace with yourself around teasing out your ideas, and then from those ideas, figuring out what feels like it truly connects to who you are, and it truly connects to your experiences and everything that you know, right? We have our experiences and then we have what we know. And those two things connect so beautifully sometimes. And it creates new ways of new perceptions, new points of view. And when we're in that flow, it just feels more in tune with your message, right? And then it energetically comes out in your content. So whatever your process is, if you take a long time teasing out an idea, be okay with that. Be totally okay with that, and be patient with yourself. There's no rush here with how consistent you are in your creation process. Like, the more that you start to tune your brainstorming and your creation process, the faster you'll get at it. And not only will you be authentic, then you'll be consistent. But I think it's more important to first learn how to create from a place of authenticity than trying to create from urgency, than trying to just be consistent and not really even know what you're trying to say or who you are, or what your beliefs are, or your values, all of that. So first, be in tune with yourself. Be okay with your creativity process, your brainstorming process, your creation. And hone that. Once you are aware of that, you can hone in on that and make it better as you move forward. Okay. Then my third point, or my third tip, I guess, for how to be yourself in your content creation is find a way to be your most imperfect self. When I talk, I do a lot of I do a lot of likes, I do most of the time. I don't like that, to be quite honest. I'm trying my best to improve the way that I articulate myself without all these filler words. But where I am in my journey right now is that I do that. And I have to be okay with that. And sometimes I get so afraid of showing all of that imperfect that I don't create, that I don't put myself online, or don't do that live, or don't do that reel, or that podcast episode. And what I'm realizing is that in being okay with my creation process, which is like idea number 2 or tip number 2, it gives me the space to be imperfect. Before doing a podcast episode, or before I tease out a podcast episode idea, I usually just talk things out. And I talk things out to myself, and I let my train of thought go wherever it wants to go. I let wherever however I articulate myself, I let it all go, and it doesn't have to make sense. It's sort of like journaling. When I journal, I start with a prompt, and it might go off into answering or talking or thinking through something completely different from the original prompt. But what I like about my creation process is that I've tried so many different things that in terms of creating that don't work. But I've come across brainstorming as talking out loud to myself, that it allows me to give myself that space to be imperfect. And in allowing myself that space to talk things out with myself and flush out all my ideas, in that process is where I begin to make connections and create the ideas and hone in on a script or an outline of something that I feel will be really helpful and useful. So I practice being myself through being my most imperfect self through journaling and talking to myself, doing voice recordings and recording myself through my ideas. And then something will eventually come out and that I really resonate with. And I'm like, oh, that feels good. I like that. And I'm even realizing for myself that that's a way that I've come to learn something about myself. So, give yourself space for that. Journaling, voice recordings, even talking with somebody else helps. But to me, I enjoy talking to myself because I don't have to make sense to anyone else. I don't have to make sense to other people, someone else that I'm talking to. I can just make sense to me. Or even if things don't make sense to me, I'm like, oh, wait, that doesn't make sense. Let me start all over. And it gives me a space to really hone in on something for myself. But I do think that it could be helpful to talk with somebody else too, because if something doesn't make sense to them, create that space and give them the opportunity to be like, hey, would you mind being my brainstorming buddy? And I'm just going to let you know that there are things that I'm going to say that are not going to make sense. And I want you to then be that sounding board where I can tell you my craziest thoughts and ideas, most unintelligent thoughts and ideas or tangents, and for you to be a sounding board for all of that. But you can be a sounding board for yourself, which is when you can just talk about whatever you want to talk about, any things or thoughts or ideas that you want to talk about, and then hone in on that. So again, create a space to be imperfect and hone in from there. It's easier to create from a place of imperfection, but still authentic, than to start from a place where you just want to be perfect right off the bat. There's too much pressure there and it's not going to work. All right. So that's it for me, y'all. That's it for my first solo season 3 podcast episode. I hope this was helpful. I wanted to, summarize what this episode is about. It's about how to be yourself in creating content. Okay, number 1 is remember to ask yourself, what does quality mean to you? And then dismantle that. Unlearn that. Number 2 is asking yourself if you are creating from a place of urgency or authenticity. And then number 3 is finding a way to be your most imperfect self so that you give yourself space to brainstorm as much as you can. And this process for me, I went through this process with this episode. So I was like, oh, I should share this with y'all. And so I wanted to hopefully give you some ways that you can begin to learn how to be yourself in your content and creation. And that will lead to your target audience coming to you, people resonating with who you are, and that energy really shines through, even if it is through video or through a podcast. That energy does come through. I believe in that. So be yourself and find ways to bring that out and hone it in, and you'll find the perfect clients and customers and audience for you in no time. All right. Let me know what you thought about this episode and come back next week for our very first guest, which is going to be Nisa Garcia Muhammad. I'm so excited for y'all to hear her story. And we talk about financial healing, financial well-being, and why is that so important in our entrepreneurship journey. So come on over next week. I'm so excited for you to hear that story and to learn more about Nisa. All right, have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll see you all on the next episode. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Be a Boss Coaching Podcast. To connect with me and the other featured guests of this podcast, remember to come over to the show notes and visit us at BeaBossCoaching.com. Remember that you don't have to do this alone. If you have any self-doubt or uncertainties, there's so many places and communities and resources out there for you to tap into. You just need to take action. I can't wait to meet you, and I'll see you in the next episode. There's like a little bug here. So annoying. You might, oh my gosh, I don't think you see it, but it's so annoying. Anyway, you might be, oh my gosh, I cannot. Should I keep this in? I might keep this in. Anyway.